All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast on MMA Unhinged. I am joined by my co-host, my good friend Oscar Silva. How are you?
I have been doing better as of late. Was coming off of surgery. We thought we were back, but we actually weren't. Now I think we are back, right? We're coming into a UFC fight week that is very unique because it's in a setting it hasn't been in for 20 years. The UFC is in Miami for UFC 287, Pereira versus Adesanya 2. And we have a super intriguing co-main event as well, featuring Miami's own Jorge Masvidal against Gilbert Durinho Burns. I cannot wait to get right into this one.
Yes, a phenomenal card, as you mentioned. The first time in 20 years that the UFC returned to Miami, and it's a fantastic. Obviously, Miami's such a great city to be on, and we've seen it this week. Obviously, Jorge Masvidal getting his chance to fight in front of his home crowd. As us, Burns, he's got a little bit of a home crowd too because obviously he's been living over there in Florida for 10 years. So yeah, it's good that they've returned back to Miami. I'm really, really excited for it. And obviously we've got a fantastic card that top to bottom. When you see the likes of like Kelvin, we were speaking about when you see Kelvin Gastelum on the prelims, you know you're in for a good night.
100%. And of course, we have Raul Rosas Jr. kicking off the card at just 18 years of age, younger than me. It's really a card that I think we'll remember for some time when it's over.
Absolutely, and if we look at these prelims here, we're roughly going to go quickly over the prelims because we want to talk about their main fights. Get everyone, the good juice, should we say? But yeah, let's go over the prelims a little bit. We've got some few standout names. We've got Bahamondes returning, Lupe Galides versus Silva Mma. That's a really good fight. Joseph Piver as well, also in the prelims. Also, we've got Michelle Watson Gomez, and obviously Kelvin Gaston and Chris Curtis, as we mentioned. There's a few good fights on there, but which are the ones that you're really looking forward to, obviously, with a stacked prelims that we have?
I think Gerald Meerschaert versus Joe Pyfer is going to be an absolute banger. I do not see a world where we see that go the full 15. Both guys are established finishers. Also, Trey Ogden, Ignacio Bahamondes. I believe that's a showcase spot for Bahamondes. But as we go in here to Meerschaert versus Pyfer, I think this is do or die for Joe Pyfer in some ways because Meerschaert has been this gatekeeper for a while, and if you can't beat him, you're probably not ready for top 15. A lot of people think Pyfer's ready for some top 15, so we'll see if he's a real deal here.
Yeah, he burst on the scene with his last fight in the UFC against Alan Lomardovsky. And obviously, I feel like we can't really take too much away from that because I know if you're in the UFC, you've got to have some sort of skills. But if you look at Alan Lomardovsky and his career inside the UFC, it wasn't, the greatest.
Yeah, it was awful. It was a lot of him getting put to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. The prelims are fantastic. Cynthia Calvillo Lupi as well. Garides, absolutely phenomenal. And then the other one I really want to top up when we talked about Ignacio Bahamondes. We're seeing highlight reels since he's entered the UFC, none more so than versus Roosevelt Roberts, who's apparently on the tough season. I'm not too sure how accurate that is, but I saw pictures of him on the new tough, so he could make him return to the UFC. But Bahamondes put him to sleep with a spinning wheel kick in the last seconds. He didn't have to throw that spinning wheel kick because he was winning the whole fight. It just shows his intentions. And I feel like maybe we're not going to see another highlight reel knockout, but I think we're going to see another fantastic performance from obviously a very, very, very good guy at lightweight.
Yeah, Bahamondes is kind of a unicorn in this weight class. He's extremely tall, very long, and he's offensively minded. Ogden, on the other hand, is not all that great anywhere, and I think that this is exactly what you want for Bahamondes to become a star.
And then if we just quickly go over our quick picks, Sam Hughes versus Jacqueline Amorim, Brazilian making her debut 6-0, so there's probably a lot of hope for her coming into this one.
Yeah, Sam Hughes has spoiled the party for a couple debuting fighters. But the thing here is, I think that Jacqueline Amorim has got some real talent, even though she's not beating a single name. I do think her jiu-jitsu is legit. And Sam Hughes, she's developing on the ground. Only recently did we see her do pretty well on the ground against some of these lower level fighters. But I think Jacqueline in the second round will snatch up a rear naked choke.
Yeah, if you look at Jacqueline's record, submission after submission and a few one TKO in there, all of her fights that she has finished, so it shows her intentions. And I talked about it. With these new fighters, how young they're coming in, how good they're coming to this game. It's phenomenal because we're seeing these young fighters and they're coming in with that finishing intention. And obviously we see another one here with Jacqueline and Amorin. 6 fights, 6 finishes against Sam Hughes. This is a good fight for her for a debut, and one that I probably favour her. Steve Garcia versus Norton Becky. This one really bit of a tough one to pick. I think Steve Garcia obviously has shown more in his UFC career. Norton Becky, actually, I think knocked out. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Charlie on Norton Becky knocked out Derek Minner in round 1, but
There we
there
go.
was weird
Norton Becky.
circumstances surrounding that.
Yeah, Norton Becky, 3 fights actually inside the UFC. He's got a 3-fight winning streak inside the UFC, so it's not bad. But who have you got this one quickly?
I am quite confident that Shailan Norton Becky is going to win this one. Steve Garcia just has not been able to get much momentum going in the UFC, trading wins and losses. Knocked out Chase Hooper in his last fight, but that's not really impressive. Chase Hooper, very low-level striker, and he's been controlled by grapplers before, like Luis Pena. Norton Becky is really good at establishing control in his fights, and he throws big strikes when he's not doing that. So I think he's got a good style to impress judges. So I'll pick Norton Becky if he can get the wrestling going, as he usually does.
All right, brilliant. So I'm going with Jacqueline, Norton Becky as well, Bahamondes, and then we'll swiftly move on. Cynthia Calvillo versus Lupi Gordias. Lupi, you know what she wants. She wants to get the fight to the ground. And do I see that being a problem for Cynthia? Obviously, she's a really good wrestler in her own right, but I just don't see her being able to get the game off that she wants to. And I see Cynthia winning this one.
Yeah, Cynthia did not have a good run at flyweight. She missed a weight a ton at strawweight, so she moved up looking to revitalize her career. She got a win over Jessica Eye, but after that, things got really tougher. So tough that she even quit on a stool fighting Andrea Lee, and that is a horrible look, especially when you're now 35 and now you're moving back down a weight class you could not make before. So not only will her cardio be damaged, her energy will be lower. I think Lupita Godinez is much hungrier, faster. She's got all the tools to match Cynthia, and I'll pace her to win this decision.
I told you so. Fight of the week, hopefully then full any March. That would be really good. But yeah, we're moving over to the heavyweights. Carl Williams step in at short notice to fight Chase Sherman, a very a veteran. Chase Sherman, been around the UFC for a very long time. Might not have the greatest success, but he's been around for the UFC for a very long time. But he's fought some of the best in the world. But I think it's time that we really look at this heavyweight division, and there should be some names in there that shouldn't really be there. Chase Sherman probably one of them, but there's one thing that we can say about Chase Sherman: he'll fight anyone, anywhere, anytime, and he proved it once again. He was scheduled to fight Charles Barnett. He stepped out. Carl Williams steps in at short notice, and he says yes. I don't know how good of a fight this will be for him, but we'll soon find out.
I think this is probably not going to be a good night at the office for Chase Sherman. He's fighting Carl Williams, who fought on that UFC Las Vegas card they had, and where Marab and Jan headlined. That was just a couple weeks ago. So the guy's still in. Yeah, he beat Lucas Bresky, and even though he looked tired in that fight, he got a bunch of takedowns. The guy's got some great, and he did the same thing on Contender Series. I think he can do it to a guy like Chase. Chase has gotten taken down multiple times in his previous fights. He can get back up, but eventually he himself is going to gas out. And I'll say Carl Williams actually gets himself a second-round TKO here. I just think Chase will be overwhelmed by the grappling.
Yeah, you got to agree. You got to think that Chase Sherman's is back up against the wall already heading into this fight. Obviously, in his last few fights, I think he's like 5-1 in his last 6 or something like that. So not a great look, but yeah, Chase Sherman desperately needs a win, and I totally agree. I think Carl Williams has got all the means to get this one done. He looked phenomenal. Well, he looked good in his debut, and I think he's going to look even better against someone like Chase Sherman. And obviously, he'll look even better in his record if he does get the win. Moving over, we'll quickly talk about Chase, Jared Mershart versus Joseph Pfeiffer. You talked about Joseph Pfeiffer needs this one. This is quite a big one. As you talked about the gatekeeper of 185 pounds, you have to get past like Jared Mershart's. When Uriah Hall was in the UFC and not retired, He has to get past these sort of guys. And this is a big, big test for Joseph Pfeiffer. We've seen his debut. It was a good showcase. He did look really good. But then again, it was against Alan Damadowski. And I think this is a big, big step up. We've seen Hamzat Chimaev did it, and he did it in fabulous fashion. And it's kind of, we're going to have to, unfortunately, after that, prospects are going to try to have to match that, because otherwise then people are not going to hype him up as much. So Joseph Pfeiffer is going to have to look good in this one to keep that hype.
Yeah, for Joseph Pfeiffer, he's actually been submitted already before, and Gerald Mearshart just finds a way to suck the energy out of these guys late in fights and get that third round submission. And I think he'll do it here against Joseph Pfeiffer, who has very minimal UFC experience, basically fought very easy competition on the Contender Series and in the UFC, as we mentioned. Amadovsky, I don't think he's got a single UFC win. And Gerald Mearshart, on the other hand, he's got a lot of UFC finishes. In fact, he's nearing the record for most finishes in middleweight history. The guy does not care to get a judge's decision. And I think he gets himself a third round guillotine.
Absolutely agree. I think that that ground game with Gerald Mearshart is going to be a little bit too much. As you talked about, we've seen Joseph Pfeiffer submitted before, so that could pose a problem. And I do feel like that. Obviously, he did look good in his debut, but I don't feel like we can take too much away from that. Respect, obviously, the opponent. We'll move over with the last two prelims that we have: Michelle Watson Gomez versus Luana Pereira. This is a big one for Michelle Watson. She really needs this one, but who have you got?
Yeah, I think this is going to be another case where the vet goes over the prospect. Luana Pinheiro, she's had a kind of an awkward start to her UFC run. Looked good on the Contender Series, but once she started in her debut with Reina Marcos, she was getting a little tired. She gets outkicked in the face, and that outkick apparently knocks her out. And that's kind of it for her. And then she comes back and she dominates Sam Hughes there. But that's not really saying much. And now she's ranked and she's a favorite over Michelle Watterson. I just don't see it. Michelle Watterson is the real deal. Like, she's so established with the UFC. She's had close fights with everybody in this division. And one of them being Amanda Lemos, who's an absolute monster who could get a title shot any day. She won the first round against Lemos, took her down. But come the second round, she got kind of guillotine. I don't think Pinheiro is as physically is as physical as Lemos. So I think Watterson will be a little more free in this fight to get her game going. I think not only could she win with some top control with takedown, she could also just outpoint her from the outside with her kicks. I think this is Michelle Watterson by split decision all day.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think Michelle Watson has got a really good all-round game. As we talked about, really good kicks, the karate hottie for a reason. She's really good with them, use them well, utilize them at distance. And obviously, we've seen her ground game a few times. But you talked about the women that she fought: Joanna Jacek, Carla Esparza. She got a win over Angela Hill. Her last few fights, you talked about Marina Rodriguez when she did a decision, and obviously got submitted by Amanda Lemos. But she's been around and been around and done it against some of the greatest women in her division. Luana's got a big step up in her hands, and you just got to wonder: is it too much of a big step up? And is Michelle Watson still capable at her age? I think she's 37, so there's a lot of questions to be answered. But I do agree with that. Michelle Watson gets it done. And let's talk about the prelim. The Kelvin Gastelum versus Chris Curtis, the feature prelim of the night. This is fantastic. Only a short few years ago, Kelvin Gastelum was in a main event in Australia, I do believe, fighting Israel Adesanya for the vacant the vacant middleweight championship, and now he's on the prelim. It's crazy.
I believe it was actually in Atlanta, Georgia. He was set to fight Robert Whittaker in Australia, and that wouldn't have been a good night for him, I believe, because those guys eventually did fight, and Whittaker outclassed him. And for Kelvin Gastelum, he's fought the murderer's row as of late, and he's not looked good doing it. I thought he was going to steamroll Darren Till after he had such a close fight with Adesanya, but ever since that Adesanya fight, not really looked the same. His striking output has been quite low. And part of that, the low output for him was working out because he was the quicker guy, knocking out a ton of champions. In fact, prior to that title fight against Adesanya, scored a knockdown against every opponent at middleweight. And this is a guy that people have been saying should go back to welterweight, but he was having so much success. Why wouldn't you stay at middleweight? Especially when you nearly beat Adesanya. But for Chris Curtis, it's kind of the same thing too. He's actually welterweight as well. That's fighting up a division. Came in on short notice, knocking out Phil Haas and Brendan Allen, which are two super good names to have on your resume. Also knocked out Joaquin Buckley, but he really did look up bad against that Jack Manson, which that was short notice too. But I just think Kelvin Gastelum is a higher level fighter. He's got tools everywhere. I don't think he gets a single takedown here because Chris Curtis has the best takedown defense UFC history, 100% takedown defense. But I think the takedown threat alone will allow Kelvin Gastelum to feint takedowns and land big right hands, and left hooks. I think Kelvin Gastelum will come into this one with a great game plan because he's at Fight Ready MMA in Arizona with Henry Cejudo. I don't know if you guys been checking out Henry Cejudo's content, but the guy knows how to game plan. And I actually think Henry Cejudo will use his game plan strategy to beat Aljamain Sterling next month. That's how highly I think of Henry Cejudo. He helped out Sean Willey, Davison Figueiredo, Yuri Prohaska, John Jones. I think he's going to help out Kelvin Gastelum here against Chris Curtis to win a close decision.
Yeah, and he was even his former foe been helping out Demetrius Johnson as well for his one championship return. So Henry Cejudo is that fantastic fighter, but an even better coach, which is phenomenal to think about. Yeah, a phenomenal fight. I'm really looking forward to it. I've accidentally left on the laptop, so I'm gonna have to quickly move that. All right, okay, I'm back. All right, okay, so let's talk about the next fight, which is the main card. We've got a fantastic main card. Let me quickly get up right now on Tapology. Here we are. The main card consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights on the main card, and we've got Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya, Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal, Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez, Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, and Raul Rosas Jr. versus Christian Rodriguez. It's stacked. We've got a prospect on there. We've got old veterans on there. We've got familiar faces, and we've just got absolute barn burners, boxers delights. It's really good. I'm really looking forward to it. And let's start off with the prospect that I was talking about. Raul Rosas Jr. getting a big showcase fight on the main card in a pay-per-view versus Christian Rodriguez. It seems like the UFC putting all their eggs in one basket, and hopefully, if he wins, it'll be phenomenal. But it's a big step up, and I feel like Rosas Jr. really needs to be on his A game.
Yeah, Raul Rosas Jr. is extremely young in his career. I know he's got a decent amount of fights. He's 7-0. But the guy, I believe he debuted back in 2021. 2021, I don't know about you guys, but that seems like yesterday. Christian Rodriguez, I believe, is the much better striker. Raul Rosas Jr. has not shown any evidence of having solid boxing. He's only really thrown kicks, flying knees to set up takedowns, and his grappling. And his grappling is super legit. He grapples with UFC fighters all the time. And he even beat one in Jay Perrin in his UFC debut, getting that first round neck crank. He's an absolute animal on the ground. But so is Christian Rodriguez. Christian Rodriguez debuted up a weight class on short notice, cut 20 pounds. And he came in there against JSP, who is a very good wrestler at featherweight. He's got himself a ranked opponent next to Bryce Mitchell because of the run that he's on. But he did not easily beat Christian Rodriguez on that night. He was a 6-1 favorite. But in that fight, he was caught in multiple guillotines. He was stunned on the feet by Christian Rodriguez, who was the smaller guy in there. So that fight proved a lot to me about what Christian Rodriguez is capable of. Also on the Contender Series, he fought Tracy Cortez's brother, Junior Cortez, who's wrestled his whole life, stuffs all his takedowns, and boxes him up on the feet. I think he'll do the same thing to Raul Rosas Jr., who's more of a jiu-jitsu guy than a wrestler. So I think Christian Rodriguez is being severely disrespected here. I don't see him being this big underdog that a lot of people think he is. And I think he's going to win a unanimous decision here.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I think obviously the UFC are putting Raul Rosser Jr. in a big fight, and obviously with the fame, with that, the momentum that Raul Rosser Jr. has behind him, I feel like the UFC obviously are trying to hoping that he does get. And don't get me wrong, if he gets it done this Saturday, his stock, his fame, everything is just going to go up even 10 times more, because this is a big fight. It's a big test for him, and I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully, I would like to see him get it done, because it's like I feel like I'm watching a story, watching a movie, some sort. We're seeing an 18-year-old enter the UFC. He's winning, and I'd like to see how he gets on. And don't get me wrong, I'd like to see someone break John Jones's record.
Yeah, but the part of proper fighter development is taking that first loss, and I think that's going to happen to young Raul Rosas Jr. Against Christian, who's a whole. Let me do the math. 7 years older than him. I think that gap. I think it's to the point where Christian's age advantage is not a weakness here. I think it's gonna help him out. The guy fights someone like a vet at times.
Absolutely agree. It's a phenomenal fight. I'm really looking forward to it. And the first fight on the main card, it's surely going to kick off the fight. Surely going to kick off the main card really well. Could be a finish, and obviously Raul Rosser Jr. loves to finish, and that kicks off a finish that could bring the momentum for the rest of the fight card that we have. Let's talk about the rest of it. Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, a really good matchup. Santiago not being the same that he used to be. Had that beard, really long layoff, and just kind of really didn't return back to his ways. Against Kevin Holland, obviously came down to 170 a few fights ago. He's on a good run, and then he lost his last two, didn't he? So against Hamzat Chimaev and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and Wonderboy, you really can't stand with that guy because he's way too good. But before that, submitted Tim Means and obviously Alex Oliveira, who recently lost on the regional scene against Kiefer Crosby. So congrats to Kiefer Crosby. But yeah, Santiago Ponzinibbio recently got a win over Alex Morono. But yeah, both guys not on the greatest of run. Santiago's trying to get back to where he was when he was, arguably could have been,
Are you still there? I do not hear you at the moment, Lane. You might want to come back out.
Hello, Oscar.
Hello? Yep,
Hello.
I'm
I
here.
think I lost you for a second. You back?
Yeah.
Okay. So we were talking about Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. I said a minus 250 favorite for Kevin Holland. I think it might be a little bit too much. I think this is a closer fight than the odds. I think.
Yeah, I think this is a pick 'em fight. I really do. I think either guy, if they're extra motivated on the night, will win this fight. This is going to be a split decision because this is going to be mainly striking, and it's probably going to come down to who lands the heavier strikes here. But here's a major concern for me here. Kevin Holland is coming in with a compromised right hand. That Wonder Boy fight was in December of 2022, and it's only been a couple months. And what was it? Recently on his podcast, we saw him with a wrap on his right hand. So I do think that he's now 100% here. And Santiago Ponzinibbio, if he's really on here, he could put a pace on Kevin, and I'll point him here. But the major concern with me, and the reason why I'm not picking Santiago, is his lack of durability and his lack of aggression as of late, I would say. Sure, he did get that KO against Alex Morono back in December, but in that fight, he got hurt multiple times and was just looking awful and starting slow. And before they got Michelle Pereira, he allowed himself to get outpaced there too. I just think Kevin Holland, being the younger guy, I think even with his compromised right hand, he can probably land some elbows or a left hook of his own or a kick or something to hurt Santiago Ponzinibbio or to just threaten him and lower his output. So I think Kevin Holland will get a split decision here, but no real confidence behind this one.
Yeah, this is a tough one to pick, and I do agree. Kevin Holland probably got the the little bit to get it done. He's younger, and obviously Santiago Ponzinibbio has not really been that same since he once should have got that title shot back in the day. But yeah, let's move over to the boxer's delight. I called this one. Everyone's gonna love this one. Rob Font, Adrian Yanez. This could easily be the main event. Put it up to the main event. Who cares? But yeah, this is my fight of the night. I think it's everyone's fight of the night pick. I think this is I think this might be every fan's fight that they're going to tune in to watch, because you just look at the sort of matchup, the sort of style, and on paper it should really, really deliver. Rob Font, primarily a boxer. Adrian Yanez, primarily a boxer, loves to box. And this is just a fantastic fight, and I feel like we're going to really see a fight of the year contender, round of the year contender at least in this one. Adrian Yanez, a big step up if you look at his last few competition. Not really on that level of Rob Font, and it could be too much of a big step up, and we can really see this weekend. Oscar, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's too much of a step up for Adrian Yanez, or do you think he's going to handle himself and deal with Rob Font on this weekend?
I do think it's a big step up for Adrian Yanez, who not long ago was having a very competitive fight with Adrian Yanez, who is not in the UFC anymore. Adrian Yanez, I do believe he has high quality skills. He's
Randy
had
Costa.
competitive sparring with Aljamain Sterling, from what I've heard. So I do think that Adrian Yanez will have success at many points in this fight, but at the end of the day, Rob Font has been to the top of this division in main events before. He's been on these big winning streaks, and Adrian Yanez is just not there yet. In that Randy Costa fight, that jab demolished him in round one. But once Randy Costa tired in that second round, he was able to take over and topple him over with a body shot. Rob Font is not going to be losing gas like Randy Costa. He's going to stay in that fight. The guy's had multiple 5-rounders, one of them being his last fight against Marlon Chito Vera, in which he landed over 200 significant strikes. That was an awesome offensive performance for him, but the problem was he would get tagged up at the end of every round. And could Yanez do what Chito did? Possibly, but I do think Rob Font has had a lot of time to assess his defense, and I think he'll fix it. But I do think he'll be in trouble in some spots here. But I'm thinking Rob Font will have the higher output, the cleaner boxing, and will win a decision here as an underdog.
Yep, I completely agree. I think this is far too too steep of a step up for Adrian Yanez, and if obviously he pulls it off, it's going to be spectacular. But as you talked about, not a few fights ago, he's having competitive fights with Randy Costa. Went to a split decision with Davey Grant, and I'm just saying that Rob Font is top 5 in the world, and obviously went to all the way with Marlon Vera. Obviously, he lost that scorecard, but he's a plus 150 underdog, and I'm just thinking where these odds got it from. I know a lot of the bookies read into momentum, prospect, fame, hype, but come on, man, Rob Font is top 5 in the world. He's been up there and been up the best and beat some of the best.
Yeah, I think the main reason here, a lot of people are thinking Rob is damaged goods, which that could be the truth, because in the Jose Aldo fight as well, that was the case where he was outstriking Jose, but he kept on getting rocked. But you got to give him credit for not going away in those fights. He would get dropped, but he would stay in the fight.
And that's what we probably could see this weekend. Story to fight of him getting dropped, maybe a tough round one. Adrian Yanez coming strong in that first round, and maybe that second and third round we could see Rob Font to take over. That's what I'm predicting.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable prediction.
And then that co-main event, Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal. This is a big one for Jorge Masvidal. Gilbert Burns obviously coming back to winning ways in his last fight against, off the top of my head, Neil Magny. There we go. I had to quickly look against Neil Magny. And if you look, Jorge Masvidal, 3 losses in a row. Colby Covington and obviously Kamaru's been twice. So you can't really read too much into them, because 3 of the best two of the best welterweights in the world that we have right now. He's lost to him. Colby Covington in line for the next shot of the welterweight strap against Leon Edwards. Whether you agree with it or not, but he's in line. And obviously, Kamaru Usman, former champion, recently lost to Leon Edwards twice. So he's got one former champion and obviously a future title contender. Obviously, in his last few fights, Gilbert Burns has been at that height. He has lost against Kamaru Usman. He has since bounced back. But this is a tough one. I didn't want to read too much into it, but I was looking at the pre-fight photos, and I was just looking at the shape of Jorge Masvidal, and I was maybe thinking, is it, for me, can I really say that, maybe we're looking at the decline of Jorge Masvidal, and obviously we might not see what he once was. I know when he was on that five-fight winning streak, flying knee knockout, knocking out Darren Till, I just don't feel like we're going to ever see that height of Jorge Masvidal again.
Yeah, with Jorge Masvidal, I was totally ready to come on this podcast and predict him to win by second round TKO, but I don't want to lie to myself anymore. I don't believe Jorge Masvidal is the guy of 2019, because in those Colby and Kamaru fights where he was getting out wrestled and outpaced on the feet, the thing was not only was he in against really good wrestlers, he did look a little slower. I'll just have to admit it there. And Gilbert Burns is the younger man here. He's no spring chicken, but he is young. He hits like a truck. He's got a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he knows how to use it. And he's been returning to his roots as of late. He fought Neil Magny back in January, and he did the smart thing. He did not go and brawl with Neil Magny and maybe get himself tired and outpaced. He just took him down and got an easy on triangle submission. And I don't think he could do that to George, because George, my goodness, Jorge Masvidal is a very good defensive grappler. He had a draw with Anthony Pettis in grappling. He fought Benson Henderson back in the day, Damian Maia back in the day, and he can hang with these guys and not get submitted. There was many instances where Colby Covington had some neck cranks going, but Jorge knows how to stay safe. He's got excellent training partners at American Top Team, including Bo Nickel and Johnny Eblen, the Bellator middleweight champion. I know his defense will hold up here, but the problem is I think he's going to be defending a lot in this fight. Gilbert will be the aggressor going forward, getting a lot of clinch control time, just like he did against the likes of Stevie Wonderboy Thompson and Gunnar Nelson. I think he can. I think he can win a decision here. It won't be the most entertaining fight if Gilbert is having his way. But if Gilbert decides to brawl against Jorge, it would definitely be a bad night at the office for him. Jorge is the better striker here, but the problem is Gilbert Burns will be very physical in there. And if this was a 5-rounder, maybe I give more credence to Jorge's chances here, but I think Gilbert will eat up a lot of time on the clock with the takedown attempts.
Absolutely, and if you look at obviously the stats that we have to look at, Jorge Masvidal last win was against Nate Diaz, and that was 3 years and 4 months ago. And the world has changed a lot since then. And obviously Gilbert Burns has came leaps and bounds since then. And I do think Gilbert Burns get it done. I feel like he can manhandle him. Obviously, we've seen Jorge Masvidal have really good grappling in the past, good defense. Gilbert Burns has one of the best BJJ that we've ever seen in MMA in the UFC. So it's something that he's going to see. That obviously it's new. But Jorge Masvidal has been around the game for a very long time. When Roy Rosas Jr. was born, George Masvidal was 5-0 in his pro career. It's crazy.
Yeah, that experience for Jorge, it was once a good thing, but now I think Father Time may unfortunately be catching up to him. And it's very hard for me to say this because I hate seeing my favorite fighters on the decline, but I'm just going to have to pick with my head on that one. But hey, if Jorge Masvidal is energized by the Miami crowd, if he's really as motivated as he claims he is, we could see him pull off a magic upset win there. But yeah, for now, that'll just be a dream in my mind.
And now let's talk about the main event of the evening. the rematch in MMA, but this is the fourth fight under any combat sport. And it's 3-0 to Alex Pereira. And I was just wondering, how much can we really read into that? How much has that affected Israel Adesanya moving into this fight? Is he psychologically beat because obviously maybe it feels like this is a man that I can't beat and it's his kryptonite, whatever. But I've seen like a different sort of demeanor for Israel Adesanya this week, and then that makes me question how that makes me put it all the way. I feel like he's in the correct headspace, and I feel like we're going to see the best Adesanya this weekend. And if you look at that first fight in MMA, he's winning the whole fight. He hurts Alex Pereira. One more clean punch at the end of the first round, or even 5 more seconds, we could be looking at a different story. This is a tough one for me to pick, but I feel like the demeanor and the way I've seen Adesanya this week, I feel like he's motivated, and I feel like we're going to see the best Adesanya. But Pereira, man, you can never write this guy out. Who have you got, Oscar?
I think Adesanya will reclaim the throne at middleweight. I just think he's a better mixed martial artist. Alex Pereira has proved he might be the better kickboxer, but Adesanya, he's been in MMA longer, and in his last fight with Pereira, he was able to get the first takedown of his UFC career. I see no reason why Pereira has improved by leaps and bounds to where he can defend these takedowns all of a sudden. So I think we'll see more wrestling from Israel Adesanya here. You see him in his training camp working on that wrestling. I say he puts it to good use early in the fight, so Alex won't be as free flowing. But that's the thing with Alex. The guy, he's got solid cardio and incredible durability. Adesanya saying he's going to get a knockout this time around, and I believe him because he almost did it in the last 2 fights with Alex. In the last fight with Alex, in the first round, he got him out on his feet, but the buzzer goes off. And part of that, it's a standing 8 count in kickboxing. I think the ref kind of helped Alex out there, to be honest. So I think Adesanya finally will be able to put him away come the 4th round after he uses some wrestling. Maybe Adesanya, the fact that he's going to be more aggressive in this fight because he's the hunter, not the hunted. I think it could end up with him being knocked out himself, but I think that's a risk he's willing to take because if he loses this fight, he's going to be in that Whitaker position where he has to fight all the contenders, but it doesn't make sense for him to fight for the belt quite yet. So I think Adesanya will be more motivated than ever, and he's going to prove why he's one of the greatest of all time and beat Alex Pereira.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a really tough fight. Obviously, Adesanya has got his back up against the wall. He's trying to fight a man that has beaten 3 times. Mentally, that could be draining. That could be beating him up inside. Obviously, he's never got that one over Alex Pereira. And if he beats him again, it's a tough road back for anyone. And I do believe if he does lose, he'll probably go up to 205. Maybe heavyweight, and try his luck there. And I feel like he can be a champion up there as well. I think Adesanya technically is fantastic, kickboxing wise, absolutely second to none. And we're seeing that. We've seen it as you talked about. He's probably a bit better mixed martial artist. But I just feel like that left hand of Pereira, we've seen it multiple times. It's kryptonite, and I feel like there's something. His aroma, the way he walks around and he prevents himself. There's something scary about Pereira, and I feel like we're going to see another. I feel like we're going to see another knockout from Pereira. I feel like he's going to knock out Adesanya. I don't think it will necessarily be quicker, but I feel like it'll be more decisive, and I'll be like, okay, he's better.
There was points in that first MMA fight where I saw Adesanya not exactly with his foot on the gas. He was kind of being, staying safe and sound. But here's the thing: I don't think he's gonna want time to eat away on the clock. I think he's gonna go and attack, be more offensive, and I think it's gonna end up with him, rising in popularity once again. Because what made him so popular were his finishes of these guys. That's I think we're going to see a similar performance as to what he was able to do against Robert Whitaker with that epic knockout in the Marvel Stadium. I think Adesanya is going to have a magical comeback moment in this fight. And who knows, a trilogy could be on the table.
Yeah, that's going to be Lenny's pick. Told you so far the week. I'm going to go with Pereira. You're going to get Adesanya. And it's big stakes at the main event right here and watch the Silva Mma show. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. That pretty much, we spoke about the whole card. We've got a fantastic card. Prospects, veterans, really good matchups. And obviously that title fight at the top of the card. I'm really looking forward to it. An absolutely fantastic night. And obviously we've got PFL today as well. Make sure you catch that. The women's featherweights and obviously the heavyweights showdown today. PFL, we got UFC this weekend. A really good night of fights, so I'm really looking forward to it. And obviously, a few out there that I'm really looking forward to the most. Obviously, Edge Rob Font, Kevin Holland, Santiago Ponzinibbio. Hopefully, they really showcase and obviously get the fight of night contention. But yeah, Alex Pereira versus Adesanya. That's obviously top of the bill, the one we're all looking forward to. And it's a really intriguing matchup. We've seen it 3 times before, twice in kickboxing, once in MMA, and it's been the same story. So it'll be interesting to see how this one goes down, see how Adesanya learns from his lessons and moves on from his mistakes, and it'll be a really good fight to watch. Oscar, you got any last leading words before we let them all go?
I just have to say thank you guys for tuning in, and I think that Adesanya winning will also help him with the heads over at the WWE, which is now going to be combining with the UFC under the Endeavor company. I cannot wait for that. Do you have any comments on that merger?
I think it's an interesting merger. I think it's good for business, good for WWE, good for the UFC. Good. I mean, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get a monopoly over, their space. The WWE obviously is the monopoly over, the wrestling. You have AEW in their case, really close to them, and obviously the UFC. That is a really big monopoly over obviously the mixed martial arts space. There's no one really next to them. There's no one really in that contention that can really fight with them. We've got PFL coming up. We've got Bellator, but yet again, the UFC is one of the biggest brands in the world. WWE, one of the biggest brands in the world, and they're adding it together. It's going to be an absolute monster. I'm really looking forward to it. And hopefully we do see some crossovers. I would like to see some crossovers. I think there's a former champion, a former UFC fighter that I think would work well under WWE. And that man is Daniel Cormier. I would love to see him over in WWE.
Yeah, I don't want to see Daniel Cormier take too many bumps because of his bad back, but I think he can make some magic happen. We never got to see Brock Lesnar fight Daniel Cormier, and I would like to see it done in a WWE ring at some point. Also, you got guys like Tai Tuivasa and Derek Lewis, who are great personalities who could fit right in. I think there's amazing potential for what that pair could create. And we know that the WWE's production is outstanding. The pyro, the pageantry. I think they could bring a lot to the UFC product, and I'm very excited for what the future holds with that merger. But that's going to be about it for us too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Oscar. An absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for everyone listening. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll catch you very, very soon. Hopefully it'll be sooner than obviously the last one. We'd like to make this more regularly. Hopefully all going well, all being well. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. And we'll catch you very, very soon. Thank you very much. Enjoy the fights and we'll catch you soon.